Welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with me, Venus O'Hara. An orgasmic lifestyle is about reaching a climax in all areas of life, not just in the bedroom. Here, we dive deep with expert guests on topics like nutrition, spirituality, personal development, sexuality, and much more. Together, we'll explore lifestyle lessons to help you lead a life that's fulfilling, joyful, and unapologetically orgasmic. I'm your guide, Venus O'Hara. Welcome to episode 132 of the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast with Venus O'Hara. In this first quarter moon episode, we discuss manifestation, wealth, and infinite riches. We speak with Pushkar Anand, author of the #1 bestseller, Manifest Your Infinite Riches, Master the Art of Living an Abundant Life. He is joined by his mentor, Blaine Bartlett, Chancellor at the Napoleon Hill Institute. I also review the book, Your Inner Billionaire, a sacred doorway to soul-aligned wealth, by future podcast guest, Debbie Dobbins. And the episode ends with a guided meditation with affirmations for manifesting infinite riches. But first, let me share with you my own journey of scarcity and abundance. I'm loving the topic of today's episode. The subject of abundance and wealth is something that intrigues me a lot, and I've read many books on these topics. And when I was reading Pushkar's book, and now Debbie Dobbins, who will be the book I'm reviewing, it's interesting because lots of the concepts in these books are actually quite familiar to me now after having read so much. And when I read these books, I don't encounter any type of resistance to the concepts that are being described. And as you know, if you've been listening to me a lot, the book that changed my life was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So it's an absolute thrill to actually speak with someone who is the Chancellor at the Napoleon Hill Institute, which is Blaine Bartlett, the mentor of Pushkar Anand, today's guest. So I was absolutely thrilled about that. But I started to think about my own journey into abundance and also my experience of scarcity. I think scarcity was revered when I was at university. Not really revered, I would say it was just necessary to actually be resilient, financially resilient, and know how to survive on not much and get creative. And that's something that I think is good about scarcity. I think when we hear the word scarcity, it's often used in a kind of negative way. But when we think about it, things like pizza came from scarcity. It's like when you use whatever you've got left and you just make it happen, you know. And I think for me, when I'm thinking about food, my most creative dishes happen when there's not much left in the fridge, because I hate to waste food. So I always come up with something that's kind of a new dish, just thinking of I'm going to use what I have. And there's something about that really kind of forces you to think outside the box and really make the most of what you have, which is, you know, a great lesson in life. But it can also kind of limit you to think like that as well. And I think sometimes with my own scarcity to abundance journey, I've often thought that certain things were not available to me or that I didn't need them. And that's something that I need to work on as one of my limiting beliefs. But going back to the resilience of money at university, that's a place where I really learnt how to handle scarcity. In England in the kind of late 90s, early 2000s, I had not much money to live on, but it seemed it didn't really seem to be such a problem because there were credit cards, there were student loans, and there were overdrafts. So the money you are actually spending, you never really have a true concept of it because there's no income. You're just getting more and more into debt. And during Freshers Week, there were all these banks there trying to poach the students, give them some free money, overdrafts, etc. And if you think about it, they are trying to poach lifelong clients because, first of all, you know, you have your student years, you're starting the overdraft. Then after university, you've got the graduate loans. a salary, which will be higher than an average salary back in those days. And then there are mortgages. So you're kind of getting someone, for life there who's going to be constantly in debt. And of course, credit cards just go up and up over time. But when I came to Spain, the concept of money and spending was very, very, very different. Remember, my first credit card here in Spain had a €300 limit. And when I became freelance, I remember my bank manager actually cut up my credit card in front of me. And I thought, you terrible person. But now looking back, I'm absolutely really glad. It was like the money you earned is the money you have to spend. And I think that's a much more healthy exchange of understanding the value of money and the value of the things that you are buying. And that's something that I really do enjoy right now. And for me, going from scarcity to abundance has been quite a journey. And sometimes I think that certain things were just not available to me over in the course of my life. But now I'm starting to think, well, why not? Why shouldn't I have these amazing things? So my inner dialogue is really transforming when it comes to wealth. But I do think that there is a concept or a notion of thinking of having a lot of wealth is going to complicate life. And I think for me, I really do value simplicity. But another thing that I really noticed about my inner dialogue or inner narrative when it comes to money is that when I'm in moments of, let's say, more abundant states, I've noticed a feeling of calm. It's really nice to not worry. I remember I've been in situations where I've had to travel for work or family stuff and not had that much money. So nothing for an emergency if I was on the road, which is really quite scary. Whereas the last few times I've been traveling, I've just kind of done whatever I wanted to do and not really thought about it. And the difference is this kind of idea in my mind of just not worrying. It's a very nice place to be. And I've got to the point where I really do love the topic of money. And some people would be very shocked when they hear that. I think there is money makes people very uncomfortable. And I used to be a member of a book club, a personal development and spirituality book club here in Barcelona. And I would often bring books about sacred sexuality to the meetups. It was a bring your own book format, and people would bring a book that was life changing, and we would discuss the topics of the books. And I got a huge list of books to read from that book club, and many of the books that I've enjoyed were suggestions from there. So when I used to bring lots of sexuality books, and they would spark some very interesting conversations. However, whenever I brought a money book, it was interesting because people were more uncomfortable about the topic of money than sex, which is so interesting. And it's like saying I'm a bad person or I'm materialistic, which is not true at all. I think wanting to have money is about having choices and having options and just being able to do what you want to do, and really live life to the fullest. But of course, wealth and abundance is not just about money. It goes beyond that, because what's the point of having all this money if you've got no one to enjoy it with? That's really important. Because I do think the greatest wealth in life is our personal relationships, families and friends, etc. And that's way more important. And sometimes I've seen, with people who are very wealthy, it can attract lots of opportunists around you, and you don't really know who's around you for the connections, for the lifestyle, or who's there for you. That can be difficult to discern. So I think sometimes it's good to have a bit of, not be so open about wealth, maybe. Because it does tend to bring out the worst in people, or that opportunist streak. But yeah, it's a very, very interesting topic as well. But I think for me, what I value the most about money is the comfort and flexibility, which is really interesting because stability and flexibility seem to be opposite things, but both you can get both of those things from money, for sure. But yeah, as mentioned, wealth goes beyond what's in your bank account. So let's get into today's conversation. I'm so excited about this. And I'm not really used to interviewing two people at the same time. So it was a real novel experience for me to actually speak with Pushkar and his mentor, Blaine Bartlett. And let's get into it. I can't wait to share this episode with you. What if your pleasure was the portal to your power? My new book, Orgasmic Manifestation, Transform Your Life with Your Sexual Energy by Venus O'Hara is your guide to using desire as a tool for abundance, purpose, and deep self-connection. Your orgasm is more than a moment. It's a message, a manifestation, a mirror of your limitless potential. Available now on Amazon. Link in the show notes below. Now it's time for this episode's interview. We speak with Pushkar Anand, author of the #1 bestseller, Manifest Your Infinite Riches, Master the Art of Living an Abundant Life. And he is joined by his mentor, Blaine Bartlett, Chancellor at the Napoleon Hill Institute. Pushkar Anand, welcome to the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast. It's a real pleasure to have you here. For those who are unfamiliar with your work, could you tell us what you do?
Yes, well, I'm an author, speaker, philosopher, out with my mission to uplift humanity, a human consciousness. That's 4 million people by my 50th birthday next year, and 100 million people by my mentor, teacher, Blaine Bartlett, Grandmaster B Square's 80th birthday on 9 September 2029.
Amazing. Wow, that's you know your elevator pitch quite well then. So
I've been used to saying it so often to friends, family, and hosts, it just seems to come naturally.
Perfect. So tell us about your mentor who is also here with us.
Well, my mentor is a very special person. We go back a very long time, and he's made quite an impact in this world before he met me, and he continues to. And I'll let him quickly introduce himself.
Welcome, Blaine.
Well, thank you, Venus. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm not sure exactly where to go with that introduction, but thank you, Pushkar. He and I first met, I believe, about 6 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. It was post-COVID. I was doing a program with Bob Proctor.
2015, yeah.
Okay, so 2015. So yeah, Bob and I were sharing the stage together doing a program, and we were live casting globally. And Pushkar happened to be in the audience, and he reached out to me and said, "Would you be willing to take me on as a client?" And I said, "No." Uh, I am not working. I didn't have the bandwidth. I'm not working with individual clients at this time. And he kept pushing and pushing, and so he scheduled a call. And just in the course of that conversation, there was something there that said, "Pay attention." So I said, "Yes, we'll take you on a probationary basis and see what happens." And the rest, as they would say, is history. The book came out of that. The Center for Infinite Riches came out of that. So I'm just very honored to have been able to, shepherd such that I did this journey and to write the foreword to the book.
Amazing. I was a big Bob Proctor fan. I used to love that meditation he has. I am so happy and grateful the money comes to me.
Yes.
There's like hour versions of it, 2 hours and 8 hours on YouTube. It's really good.
Yeah. Bob was one of my dearest friends.
Oh, amazing. So tell us what inspired you to follow this path, Pushkar. What's your story?
Oh, well, it's a 15-year story, a 15-year journey, Venus. I'll try keeping in 3 or 4 minutes. And I was one of those who grew up with a very textbook success definition. I went to the LSE, London School of Economics. I went to Cambridge. I worked in banking. And these were things I wanted to do as I was growing up as a child. But as I started getting into my early 30s and the global financial crisis unfolded, things started to change within me. I started going back to examine what is life all about? What is that foolproof formula for success? What is success in the first place? And I started listening a little bit more to my heart than I did earlier. And then this hobby or this interest in trying to understand what is life and how does it unfold went from elevated from a hobby to an interest to a passion to an obsession. And by the time I got to The year 2015, which was 7, 8 years into the journey, I'd got through about 250, 300 books.
Wow.
I'd been to 15, 20 immersive seminars, workshops, Messrs. Canfield, Proctor, Dyer, the usual suspects. And I knew a little bit more, but the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. And then, as Grandmaster B Square mentioned in that seminar, we met, and I poured my heart out. I said, I'm on this quest, and I want to know more, and I just know that you meant to be my teacher. And we had a bunch of synchronicities. My date of birth is 21st October. If you remember Bob's story, Ray Sanford gave him Think and Grow Rich 21st October 61. I'm 21st October 76. They're one of the synchronicities, and God knows how many more happened. And he kindly, Grandmaster B Square, kindly agreed to mentor me and teach me. And he said, look, I don't have a program. We just have to go old school, like the Greek, Indian days of thousands of years ago. And I said, fine, I love that. So that got added to the arsenal. By the time we got to COVID, Venus, I'd got through some 500 books, 30-odd seminars, 4 or 5 years with him. And that whole quest within me, rather than looking for that foolproof formula out there, metamorphosed or transformed into looking in here that what is the purpose of life? What is my purpose? What is your purpose? What is everyone's purpose? Why are we here? Why do we do what we do? And how do we elevate ourselves and everyone else? And that took me to wanting to share all that I'd learned. As Grandmaster B Square and I chatted a bit, we felt the best way to get the story out there is to write a book. So that journey started in 2022, and obviously went through lots of writing, editing, rewriting, re-editing. But the whole mission or purpose there was, as I found my own, is that, wow, it took me 15 years to become the person I was meant to be, to manifest my infinite riches. Let's get out there and share what we have with people across the world so they can do it in 15 months or quicker, because everything I learned and I did was spent down in a structured, organized manner. So anyone who reads it or studies the material can manifest theirs a lot quicker. And the book was born.
So you're looking for some kind of meanings that went beyond just working and earning money. Would that be true?
Absolutely. It was the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And a lot of what the book talks about comes and draws back to the word purpose. And then we put together money, purpose, define riches, define infinite riches, build models in a way that people understand. Lots of real life examples out there. And that's how the story flows and progresses.
Amazing. So I have the book here, Manifest Your Infinite Riches. And I'm about to finish it. So it's been I have a whole shelf of money energy books. So just before we got online, we mentioned that this is not just money. So when you say riches, how can you define riches?
Yeah, I do have an interesting definition of riches, but this is one that Grandmaster and I have chatted about quite a bit. So I'm going to request him to start this with how he sees it, and I'll come in with mine and let's see how our viewers, listeners write the all-round perspective. Is that all right, Venus?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Go ahead. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. When we think of riches, most people think of material wealth, riches in material form. There's riches in relationships. There's riches in connection, the intimacy of bonding. All of that comes together. And you can think of riches in the context of matter. And what matter is, it's energy shaped by the dynamic movement of consciousness. That's what matter is. It's energy that is shaped by the dynamic movement of consciousness. It's the localized, differentiated expression of consciousness in motion. And it takes its form in different ways. Where this moves to is it's an abundant, infinitely abundant universe. Consciousness is the first cause. Max Planck, who was the father of quantum physics, famously said, we can get behind everything, but we can't get behind consciousness. And consciousness is the expression that we see in our lives. So when we're looking at riches aren't out there. Riches start in here. So how I define myself basically ends up being my definition of what we could metaphorically call God. Okay? So when I'm defining me, I'm defining God, and God projects out into the universe, out into my experience of reality, what it is that I have access to. We mentioned Bob Proctor. I mean, I remember a quote from Bob years ago. We were doing a program on wealth, and one of the students said, "Where am I going to get the money?" And Bob just kind of looked at him and says, "Well, wherever it is."
Great answer.
And it is. It is a
Mm.
factual statement. It's an abundant universe. Money is everywhere. Money is simply energy in a specific form. It's a creative energy. And this is true for all riches. And we talk about this in the book. Riches, not just monetarily, but riches in every aspect of my life. It's an infinite storehouse that I have access to when I begin to work with consciousness.
So would you say it's about starting with a feeling inside?
Feeling is the catalyst. Manifestations. If we could go into the law of attraction, sort of a conversation here. The law of attraction is a secondary law. It's rooted in the law of vibration. Everything vibrates. Matter vibrates. All matter is a slowed down form of energy. It's slowed down to the vibrationally slowed down to the point where we can actually perceive it. This screen that we're working through, the chair that I'm sitting in, it's vibrating. I mean, I don't feel it vibrating, but it is. So to the question about it, feeling is the catalytic mechanism that human beings use to create and manifest. How it feels is where I end up, what I end up, manifesting in life. And there's a notion of fidelity that comes into play here. High fidelity, as opposed to just kind of broad spectrum. You want to be able to, really focus the energy from an energetic perspective. And it's that focused, energetic experience that we begin to feel our way into and through, and then it manifests itself externally.
Would you like to add anything?
I'll chip in there, Venus, just what I was saying earlier around the definition of riches. Now, that's a fascinating perspective Grandmaster B Square gives there. And I just want you to give you the other one that I'd mentioned earlier. So we start the book with these words. And that's where this whole concept of riches came from. That, yes, you are infinitely rich. You are infinitely rich because you are you. Right? Now, this is a phenomenal sentence, not because I crafted it, because it reinforces, Venus, which is the core truth. Underlying, the term used earlier was human consciousness or humanity. And that is that every human being is born infinitely rich. Every human being. This process called living, the way we see it today across the 7.5, 8 billion people across the planet, across most of them, takes us away from this truth.
Yeah.
This book, and all the conversation we're having, and all the material we have, brings people right back there. Through all that is in there, and the fascinating 4-pillar foundation, which we can go into when you like. But put all of this together, the core purpose there is to bring people back to that core truth and get them to go within. And then the process of manifesting those infinite riches, those riches which come from your absolute core, from your purest self, deep down in there, start to get identified, thrive, grow, and come out or manifest.
Perfect. So a lot of people who are attracted to these types of books, especially a title like Manifest Your Infinite Riches, sometimes they're coming from a place of struggle or limiting beliefs, or they're looking, it's a lack kind of mentality. How can those people really get out of the fear mode and start feeling this? Because I think it's a bit of a process, because I mean, you were talking about feelings before, because sometimes these feelings are blocks and fears. It happened to me about a couple of years ago. I lost a massive contract, and I listened to affirmations all day to try and get back onto that big thing. But I was just in this paranoid state. And it just took me several months to get back to that abundant state of expecting good things to happen. So what would you say to those people? Because I think a lot of the self-help world, a lot of people just stay in that kind of hamster wheel of not really evolving. How can you actually progress through these books?
Yeah, but let's. I think this is one which we both going to answer this together. But let's take it in turns, because this is really the heart of people becoming abundant, because to become abundant, you got to manifest certain things. And that's where we go back to blocks and feelings and things. Would you like to kick it off, Grandmaster B Square? Should I?
No,
How should we
I'll
do
jump
this?
into this. This kind of goes to the question you had earlier, Venus, about feeling. Fear is a base emotion, and it has all kinds of consequences to it. It's a very low vibrational state. So when people are working with affirmations, and this seems to be typical of many people that actually work with affirmations in this context, they'll put them up on the refrigerator door and they'll see them, but there's no feeling attached to them. The feeling is overridden by the experience of lack, in the moment. So one way to think about this is it's a mindset issue. There's three basic mindsets that people operate with in the universe, in the world. There's not enough, there's just enough, there's more than enough. And these are literal mindsets. If I'm operating from there's not enough, it's a contractive energy, it's fear-based, it's organized out of scarcity. If I lose that big contract, oh my God, I'm going to die. And it's coming from there's not enough. And I look around and I see my bank account and it's reinforcing there's not enough. That's a mindset, and we get into a loop around that. One way to begin to move out of that is to shift a mindset so that you begin to really work from there's just enough. Okay. And this is a graduation. There's just enough. Just enough implies I've got, the basics are handled. So it allows me to breathe a little bit. And there's a feeling shift. There's the tonality shift in the feeling structure in the body. That is and it's that feelings are a magnet for experience. Then the third mindset here has to do with it's an abundant universe. There's more than enough. There's more than enough. I may not have something right now, but there's more than enough. This is Bob's point, when I mentioned it earlier. Where's the money coming from? Well, if I've got a mindset of there's more than enough, money's going to come from wherever it's at right now. It's just going to come. And the way that, I've worked with Pushkar on this when we were early starting out, because he had some goals and objectives. And the point I kept coming back to was it's already happened. You just haven't arrived yet. It's already happened. You just haven't arrived. And that gives permission, first of all, for the brain to kind of go, whoa, okay, it's already happened. Because everything that's been invented or ever will be invented has been invented twice, first as an idea and then in physical form. It's already there. So now I just need to get myself set up so that vibrationally I'm in coherence with that which I say I desire. And that's why I go back to the way I define myself basically ends up being the way I define God. However God translates into your own philosophy of life, whether it's universe or whatever it might be. And I'm not talking about this in a religious sense. I'm talking about it in the orgasmic creative sense. There's just, it's birthed.
Absolutely.
I'm
coming from that position.
And if you take it, Venus, if let's take that to a further level. So we're talking feelings, yeah. Now, feelings. If we look at the link between the feeling and manifestation, so the feeling comes at the end of the day that leads to manifestation, the subconscious mind. The feeling that's nestled in the subconscious mind directly results in a certain experience, which is called a manifestation experience. The feeling we think, right? Let's stay with me a few seconds. The feeling we think we are feeling is the conscious mind in action. What is down there in the subconscious, we don't know. But the manifestation result we have is what is there in the subconscious. That feeling, you could call it a pattern, you could call it a program. We're talking to Bob, he used to call it a paradigm. Give it whatever word you like. That which is in there is what reflects out there. And that's why the great Kybalion you've heard of, as within, so without, as above, so below. In here, out there. So the trick that Napoleon Hill we mentioned earlier, donkeys of years ago, you got to trick the subconscious mind, for want of a better word. You got to change the feeling in there. We talked about feeling earlier. As a great man, Neville Goddard, there's the feeling gets the blessing. It's that feeling in there. And earlier, the Grandmaster B Square touched upon law of attraction. He said law of vibration is primary because you attract what you vibrate at. What you vibrate at is the vibrational frequency in the subconscious for whatever you are there to manifest. So, what anybody out there, coming back to where the conversation started first few minutes ago, is those who got different kinds of blocks. They got to appreciate those blocks have come over years or decades. They haven't come overnight. Likewise, what you need to change in there also needs repetitive work and repetition through different means. You could call it imagination, visualization, vision boards, affirmations, but it's got to generate that feeling. And that's the foundation of experiences in life for bringing manifestation out there.
Amazing. You mentioned vision boards a lot in your book. Yeah.
Yes, I did, and they do work for me. They very much do. And this was in the early days. I'd made a vision board. That's the beauty of this thing and the irony that when we look at it, we first have difficulty accepting it to ourselves in a conscious way. So I'd made a vision board in the very early days, and I could, no, is that me? No. And then after about a week, I took it to my wife, and she said, right, okay. And then I took it to my dear Grandmaster B Square. I said, look at this. What do you think of it? Not bad. Okay. When did you make it? It's been a week, 10 days. And I'm kind of getting comfortable with the idea. But that is where it is. We've got to first convince ourselves consciously, then subconsciously. And then when you're convinced yourself, it doesn't matter what the world thinks because you're suddenly not bothered about what's going on out there. Do you remember Grandmaster B Square, that first vision board and that sheepish look I had in my face?
Yep.
It happens to all of us, Venus. We've today, I'm a different person, God goodness me, after all of these years. But everything we do, all that I see in this life today, somewhere I saw it within me earlier. I used to tell her, I said, look, we're in this mission to uplift 4 million people. It's got to happen by my 50th. Then we got to get to 100 by our 80th. We got to do this. We got to go around the world. And then, so much happened that so many people who helped us in the journey. Jack Canfield helped us immensely. He'd known Grandmaster a long time. He helped me with the initial introduction. I went down to his today is his retirement day, by the way. It's the last day he's working before he retires. He came literally out of nowhere and played such an important part in spreading the message. So many other people did, but it all just happened because there was a vibrational match. There was a frequency match within the subconscious. Sorry, I don't know if that reinforced the point or I went off on a tangent, but back to you.
It's all good. So, but I've always found that a lot of people don't really know what they want. So let's say, because making a vision board, you have to get clarity on what you're actually going for. Because people are complaining about what they don't have, how their life is. But to get to that clarity of knowing what you want, because also there's another nuance of what you want might not be good for you, or it might not be what you need. So how can we get to that wish list? How can you know you've got the right wishes?
Right. This is again a question for two of us. Grandmaster B Square, please. First you. I'll come in after that.
I truly think that the catalytic question for that is not so much what do I want, because people can actually, and often they'll answer it in the context that you're referencing, Venus, about what I don't want. Well, I don't want to have a deficit in my bank account. Well, what do you want? All of these things, the purpose of a goal is not understood particularly well in our world today. Most people think that the purpose of a goal is to get something. That's not the purpose of a true goal. The purpose of a true goal is to grow. If my goal isn't growing me, it becomes and really, I love the title of this show for that reason, because what we're looking at is creation of self. The soul wants to fully express itself in all of its richness. It can't do that with tiny goals.
Interesting.
Yes.
Big, because
It ends up
big
becoming
goals.
an iteration of what I had yesterday. I'm going to get a 10% increase. Well, okay, I know how to do, it's boring. So there's no juice, there's no aliveness, there's no fire, there's no vigor, there's no, you fill in the blank. So if we can begin to understand that the purpose of a goal is to grow, I want to be able to set goals that actually scare me a little bit. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I just know that inside I can't not have this. It's so important to me. So the real question, and this is the catalytic question, is I want to have this for the sake of what? For the sake of what? What does it allow me to have, do, or be that I wouldn't get to have, do, or be if I didn't move in this direction? That question of for the sake of what? Why, what's so bloody important about this that you can't sleep at night? You've got to get up and start moving. You have this compulsion, this felt desire to move, to grow, to express, to expand. That's when life gets juicy.
And that's Venus building on that foundation. There's a fascinating, a powerful concept here. We devote a whole chapter, and there's a whole program beyond the book on this concept of dharma. Right? Dharma is often in a Western context, people think of it as religion. No. It's got nothing to do with religion. Right? Nothing at all. It is your unique purpose in life, your biggest gift, your infinite riches, a perpetual, never-ending orgasm for you and everyone you interact with. It literally is that. We were talking about your podcast and the title, and we felt, the work we've done really ties in with the title. Because what we're saying is when you're living your dharma, your purpose, you're living the calling of your soul. Yeah. Your soul is a fragment of universal spirit. Call it force if you're a Star Wars fan, call it God, call it what you like. It is a fragment of a force much bigger than all of us. So when you're listening to the calling of your soul, you're listening to the voice of that force out there, in here. And when you manifest that purpose, when you live that dharma, in a way, you're doing God's work. And when you're doing God's work, the money chases you. You don't think about the money. You don't talk about the money. It's a powerful concept, the impression of increase. A chap called Wallace Wattle, Science of Getting Rich. The rumor goes that Rhonda Bryn wrote The Secret. That's the book that got her all ignited. And he talks about the impression of increase. Everyone you touch, leave them better off than where they were, with the genuine impression of increase. And when you are living your dharma, the point Grandmaster made earlier about waking up in the morning, you are absorbed by a purpose so much bigger than you. That concept of tiredness goes away. And I don't have the book with me, but I think it's page 36 or somewhere. There's Patanjali, thought of the father of yoga 3,000-4,000 years ago. And he talked about that when you're living a dharma, a purpose, dormant forces within you come alive. You become a person far bigger than you ever imagined yourself to be. You do work much more than you've ever done. And I was besotted with these words, and I've literally been through that over the years. And I tell people often, I said this to Jack when he interviewed me, and he loved it too, that Chariots of Fire, if you're familiar with the 1981 film, Eric Liddell is doing the end race. The voice in his mind comes out in the background, which says that he says, God made me fast. God made me for a purpose. And when I run, I feel God's pleasure. And he runs beyond every other athlete because he's not driven by the ego. Wayne Dyer used to say, ego is edging God out. He's not driven by the ego. He's driven by something much bigger. So he's not competing with anybody else. He's just got to get there because that's part of his purpose.
I love that.
And that takes over your life. That's the power of dharma, purpose. So what I think between what the two of us have said, if our viewers take that away and link it with this concept of purpose, dharma, aliveness, consciousness, soul, as it's explained in the book, I think it will really elevate the way you look at life and yourself and how humanity comes together.
Yeah, some word that's been a kind of a buzzword for me lately in my life is aliveness. You just said it now. So I've been looking for aliveness in many sources, and that's from, and now I've actually got this quote here on my desk. go where you feel the most alive. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to kind of, think about making the wish list. But going back to Napoleon Hill, we've mentioned that's the book that changed my life, Think and Grow Rich. And I've been a sexpert for many years. I've been focused on female pleasure. That's been my kind of area of expertise. But in 2018, so 2 years after your awakening, I was in a situation where I had no pillows. I was living in a tiny apartment, no lift. I was living in Barcelona, by the beach here in Barcelona, always cold, always hungry. And I thought, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong here. Then I started looking for self-help, and I found Think and Grow Rich. And it was like, wow. And I found the chapter, The Mystery of Sex Transmutation. And that completely changed my life, because what I love about that is it's not just about the sexual energy at the beginning, but the latter part of that chapter is about relationships, because we're talking about richness here, and how the relationships are the foundation of happiness and satisfaction of life. It's not how much money is in your bank account. So could you tell us anything about that, about how, relationships, friendships, family, partnerships can...
Who goes first? My favorite question.
Yeah.
Grandmaster
Oh, is it your
B
favorite
squared
question?
away.
That's good. We're aligned, obviously, tonight.
Yeah, I'm a chancellor at the Napoleon Hill Institute.
Oh,
so
are you?
yeah,
Oh my God. I'm a big
yeah,
fan. I read it every year.
yeah. We could, that's a rabbit hole we could go down, but I'll come back to the question here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There is, yeah. If I'm alive, relationships inform who I am.
Mm.
It's that simple. I'm a function of the relational dynamics in my world. And most people, don't deliberately, intentionally create high quality relationships. They just take what they're given.
Mm.
It just seems to kind of organically emerge. When we're looking at highly successful people that are, looking to be highly successful in their life, however they define that word success, and again, riches gets to be, part of that, not just monetarily, but it's oftentimes the pursuit of a worthy ideal. That's, in large part what a relational definition comes into play with it. I have a relationship with my life. I have a relationship with my dreams. Most people, to your point earlier, don't know what they want. So that relational quality is very poor. They don't have a high quality relationship with their dreams in a way that it informs who they are. At its core, consciousness, awareness isn't inert. It's not passive. It's inherently creative. And it gets creative when it's bumped up against something else. There's a relational quality to it. When it's agitated and stimulated, it gives rise to vibration and frequency and then form. This is where aliveness comes into play here. The physical world isn't separate from awareness. The physical world is the most tangible expression of awareness. So most people aren't aware of where they're paying attention. This is the relational quality. Squirrel. I mean, all of a sudden their attention gets hijacked. They've got a relationship with something over there that is drawing their energy from what they said that they wanted to have. That's something else. That there's a relational quality to that something else. And this goes to the subconscious that Pushkar was speaking about earlier. 95%, roughly 95%, study after study, supports this. 95% of people's behavior by the time they're about 30 years of age are directed by their subconscious mind. And subconscious means out of awareness, literally out of awareness. So we will set an objective, consciously set an objective. But the relationship I have with my subconscious is so compelling, so strong, and not recognized well, I end up behaving in ways that are antithetical to getting what it is that I said that I wanted. I need to develop a relationship with my subconscious, not just with the people in my life, not just with this, the area that I live in. A good example of this, just relational. My office, I designed my office for a very specific reason. I designed it in a very specific way. And there's a notion in the design world that's called ontological design. You design an environment that designs you in return.
Mm.
And there's an intentionality behind that. I have a relationship with my office. The doors into my office are 180 years old. I brought them over from Europe, sized them, put them in. So when I walk into my office, there's this opening that comes in. It's an invitation into a place that has a very specific purpose. It looks out onto the ocean.
Wow.
And it's designed specifically for creativity. It's designed specifically for peacefulness. It designs me in return. This environment designs me in return. I have a relational quality to this office. There's a relational quality that reinforces who I say I want to be. So when we start thinking of relationships, we want to expand the definition of what we mean by that. It's not just, my relationship with you.
Mm.
I want to take a look at my relationship with anything and everything that I have in my life, because it's all a projection of who I am.
Oh, wow.
Excellent. Well,
Uh-huh.
now the second part of that. The chapter you referred to, Venus, I remember that. And I remember it's been a few years since I went back to that book. But Napoleon Hill talked about why often he referred more to men, because in those days, the success comes well after the age of 40, often even 50, because the sexual energy seems to mature or transmute into wider creative energy with time and age. And then he links it back to this whole idea of relationships and going from there. And all I want to add to that is, Venus, that people who have a good or a happy relationship or at peace with themselves are often the people who are most at peace with others.
Mm.
Often, if you're working in an office, sector, industry, anywhere, it's the same chirpy ones who generally happy as they are, happy for no reason, and they don't get into tiffs or acerbicity, for want of a better word, with others. And the grumpy lot generally are grumpy about anything and everything, and it's not that mechanical, and it could be a generally happy person who's having a bad day, and you keep getting that grumpiness out on everyone else. And it's one of my favorite quotations, and between us, amongst us, we've talked a bit of Bob, and it's the quotation I use when we start the last, not in the last chapter, the conclusion, and I absolutely love it. And I think it shows how we can sort out our relationship with ourselves. It's my relationship with me. So Bob, as in Bob, when he was a young fellow, one of his mentors, a chap called Leland Van der Waal, and his quotations, which he'd said over the years, I think Grandmaster knows what I'm coming up with. It goes something along these lines. If I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me you think I should be, not the me my wife thinks I should be, not the me my neighbor thinks I should be. If I want to be free, I want to be me.
Mm.
I better know who me is.
Okay. I feel very privileged and grateful to have this opportunity with two experts. I'm going to ask you some advice. I'm going to ask for some advice. Okay. I'm really intrigued about the answer. So I recently went to the US because all my audience is US based. I'm living in Barcelona. I'm British. But this culture of Barcelona is very relaxed, as you probably know, if you know anything about Barcelona. And I think you just mentioned something about environment, and that just triggered some of my thought processes. So I think sometimes we are, products of our environment. That could be people, it can be places. And I've just felt like I needed to go to the US just to absorb the energy and the hustle culture. I just needed that bigger vision. So I've just come back from New York, Miami, and LA, and it was just like, wow, I was just thinking so big. Then I come back and I just one of my contracts is not being renewed, so I'm in this space now of. But if I'm really honest, it wasn't a contract that had my 5 values, which are written down here, which are authenticity, freedom, achievement, success, love, affection, and health. And I was just doing it for the money. It was kind of easy money. So now I'm in this stage of like, okay, how do I start building something that's more aligned with my values and get infinite riches? That's the question.
My teacher goes first, as always.
Well, I think you've already begun the process, Venus. I truly do. It's, the definition of values.
Mm-hmm.
When you begin to define those and really begin to take a look at, for the sake of what is this important to me, for the sake of what is this value important, the true power of values is that they guide behavior, they inform decision making. So to the point of this contract that's going away, yeah, I said yes to it because it was easy money. Okay, as an example. From a values perspective, it conflicted with one or more of your
All of them.
your core values, or with all of them.
Maybe just the money one.
See, yeah. So think of this in terms of cost and investment. Where I'm going to with this is the nature of time. Time is the only non-renewable asset we have access to. We can't go to the bank and get more time. So I want to be very discreet and discriminating about how I'm investing my time as opposed to spending my time.
Oh,
very big distinction between those. Spending my time, there's not a ROI, there's not a return on that spend necessarily. It may be a momentary, well, that was nice. But if I'm investing my time, and embedded in the word investment is an implicit return that is going to be larger than what was outlaid. It'll come back in a different form, because it's energy being transmuted. But you're looking at, how am I investing? What's the investment? And you use your values as a guide to that.
I'm going to ask ChatGPT as well to give me a plan of like what I'm going to do with the values and all the things that I'm good at as well to try and make a new kind of strategy. Do you have anything to add, Pushkar?
Take it beyond Venus, and I'll give you my own example, which will resonate very much with when you talked about that contract. And someone had mentioned to me, is look, there's this fascinating concept you've come up with, and I won't mention the country or the name, but there's this certain company in this country, and I think it could be a pretty lucrative assignment for you. What do you think? And I said, look, it doesn't resonate with my heart. The vision in my heart, which I think dear grandmasters heard a million times, is to go out there and wake up people. Wake people up so that they're on the journey to become the person they're always meant to be, to manifest the infinite riches. Now, when I do that, it's 4 million by now, 100 million by then. If I'm giving them something invaluable, infinite, and I get $1 or $2 back a person, whether I end up with 200 million, 10 million, 5 million, 500 million, it doesn't matter, because that is not what I'm focusing on. And the first time I wrote this down in the book, synchronously, if there's such a word, coincidentally, I came across for the first time Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And he says exactly the same thing in the introduction. Pick up and you'll see the introduction. He makes exactly the same point. And I had tears in my eyes. And that is one thing I have never gone away from. Right? If, this is great, okay, but why am I doing this? I'll give you $100,000 or 2 hours of work. So I don't know. I don't mind the 100,000 for 2 hours, but is it energetically, fundamentally aligned with that dharma I have for my life, that mission that translates into the vision? And if it's not, it doesn't matter what the funds are, I'm not going to do it. So money is not the driver. I absolutely love money. I love it to come from all places and all shapes and sizes. As much as comes is great. But that is not the driver. And that's what we start the book with in chapter 1, with Steve Jobs' quotation saying exactly the same thing. And I hope that resonates a bit with I won't say dilemma, but the introspection you were doing.
Yeah, I think it's just I'm in that place of like not trying to go into fear mode and just still think, oh yeah, I'm going to have some more transatlantic trips soon, because I have a lot of media popping up now. So I'm trying to think, I've got to keep thinking big, because I think environment is a big factor. So tell us about the center of infinite riches. What is the center of infinite riches?
Well, I say the center for infinite riches is a movement.
Okay.
It's not a brick and mortar thing. It's a movement. It's a feeling which is out there to uplift humanity, human consciousness. That's all. There is nothing more to it. But it goes beyond the book. It goes into, on our website, there are programs which we've created between us, Grandmaster B Square and I. There's a 6 Statutes of Money. That's our flagship program. There's a program on Dharma. There's a program on vision boards, affirmations, and one called the JJ Method. It was a JJ is a fascinating man. I met thanks to Jack Canfield, and I told Grandmaster B Square all about it, and we had a good laugh. And JJ is an important part of my life today. But beyond that, there's a good amount of free content, Venus. The
Oh,
videos that
great.
we've shot on different topics. There's one of my favorites is There Is No Plan B, the story of Tariq bin Ziyad. One of Grandmaster's favorites, at least I think it's his favorites, and it's one of mine too, is where he talks about inspiration versus motivation. There's some pretty powerful content there which one doesn't have to pay for, but it really helps people wake up, rise, become who they're meant to be. And the programs are pretty affordable as well. We price them in a way that the flagship is, I think, $18 or something, and it starts from 6 or 7. So the whole idea is to make it accessible to people across the world through the center, which has in terms of people a presence in every continent, and we are there to wake people up and become who they're always meant to be. Would you like to add anything, Grandmaster B Square?
I think you're good.
Okay. A couple of quick questions for you. I ask everyone on this podcast. What is the book that changed your life?
Who's going first, as always?
Blaine?
I'll go first with this one. I think probably the one that I would say changed my life, and it wasn't Think and Grow Rich. It was Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein, science fiction book back in the 1960s. And it was the first, I love science fiction. I'll just kind of, open with that, because science fiction is usually good. Science fiction is about possibilities. And Stranger in a Strange Land was about the possibility, what could humankind be if a human tapped into latent possibilities, latent ways of being that are not typically accessed. And I remember reading that and just literally having shivers. It's kind of like, wow, this is so cool, because I knew it was possible. And fast forward to today, literally about 60, 70 years later, more than that, we've got biohacking going on that is beginning to actually fulfill the promise that was embedded in that book, Stranger in a Strange Land.
Wow. I'm a big fan of Brian Johnson. I just love him.
Oh, Brian, yeah. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Mine is a lot more basic, not science fiction, basic in the sense from this field of personal development. It's the first book I really read and went into, and it's called Bring Out the Magic in Your Mind. Al-Quran. Is an English magician called Edward Doe. Most people who are born in the 40s or 50s, especially in the UK and possibly the US, know of him. Otherwise, people don't. It went out of print for a long time, and it's back in circulation. I got my hands on a 7th, 8th, 10th hand copy, early 2000s. With Venus, it talked about wonderful things. It talked about the magic of everything, the magic of music, the magic of flowers, the magic of X, Y, Z. And I fell in love with this idea of personal development with that book. And one of the quotations there, which I've never forgotten, he says that when you start your day every morning, bless your money to go out and help everyone it touches.
Amazing.
Give food to those who need it. Give more money to those who need it. Give clothes to those who give blessings to those who need it. Let it go back and come back to you multiple fold, and it goes out again, and the cycle continues. So that was the one for me. Yes.
That reminds me of Ken Honda, the arigato in with happy money.
Happy money.
Yeah, I've got a whole thing of money books here. I love it.
He's a good friend of
yours,
very
close friend. Very dear friend of mine.
I love his videos. He's just so kind of simple but sophisticated at the same time. It's it's great. So what about a quote that you live by? A quote that you live by?
It's already happened. I just haven't arrived yet.
Okay, we love that.
Yes, you're infinitely rich. You're infinitely rich because you are you.
Okay, we love that. Okay, well, thank you. So where can people find you?
PushkarAnandsWorld.com, where there's all about the center, me, Grandmaster's role in my life, and then he has his own practice, which I'll let him tell you about.
Simple one is BlaineBartlett.com. That's my personal website. I've got a company. It's got another website, but you can track to there from blainebartlett.com. There's programs, a number of different things, except, except free books. I've written 5 books. A couple of the books are available on e-formats. And then if you just, do the @Blaine Bartlett, you'll see my LinkedIn, my Instagram, my TikTok, I'm everywhere.
Okay, we'll be looking you up. Perfect.
Sorry, I was just saying that there's a good amount of information about him as well on the website. And the footer everywhere, we have all social media handles there. So it's rare if you come to mine, you don't find him, and then you have his independently as well.
Yes.
Amazing. Love this. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Orgasmic. So thank you for joining us on the Orgasmic Lifestyle. It's been a real pleasure. Now it's time for this episode's meditation. Please don't listen to this while driving or operating machinery. Instead, take a break from whatever you're doing, get comfortable, take a deep breath, and enjoy. I am open to the flow of infinite riches coming to me now. I am worthy of receiving wealth in all its forms. I am a magnet for limitless wealth and abundance. Money flows to me effortlessly from multiple sources. My wealth grows every single day. My wealth grows in expected and unexpected ways. I am grateful for the abundance I'm attracting into my life. I am open to the flow of infinite riches coming to me now. I am worthy of receiving wealth in all its forms. I deserve infinite riches in every area of my life. I am aligned with the energy of prosperity. I attract opportunities that increase my financial freedom. Abundance surrounds me and fills every corner of my life. I am grateful for the abundance I'm attracting into my life. I am open to the flow of infinite riches coming to me now. I am worthy of receiving wealth in all its forms. I release all limiting beliefs about money and success. My financial abundance allows me to give generously and live fully. I am grateful for the prosperity I already have and the wealth on its way. Every investment I make returns multiplied abundance to me. I am grateful for the abundance I'm attracting into my life. I am open to the flow of infinite riches coming to me now. I am worthy of receiving wealth in all its forms. Wealth is my birthright, and I claim it joyfully. I attract money, success, and abundance easily and effortlessly. I am the creator of my financial destiny. Opportunities to grow my wealth appear every day. I am grateful for the abundance I'm attracting into my life. What if your pleasure was the portal to your power? My new book, Orgasmic Manifestation, Transform Your Life with Your Sexual Energy by Venus O'Hara, is your guide to using desire as a tool for abundance, purpose, and deep self-connection. Your orgasm is more than a moment. It's a message, a manifestation, a mirror of your limitless potential. Available now on Amazon. Link in the show notes below. To find out more about me and my orgasmic lifestyle, visit venusohara.org or follow me on Instagram. The Orgasmic Lifestyle is also on Substack and YouTube, where you can watch all the interviews with our experts. All the links are in the show notes below. Make sure to search for the Orgasmic Lifestyle Podcast by Venus O'Hara in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere podcasts are found. And click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks for listening. Have an orgasmic week, and make sure every day is a climax.